Arriving at Frank's laboratory, we see pink pastel tile walls, strange red scientific equipment on display, and behind Frank stands a peculiar item concealed by a bright red curtain. Like the dual Mona Lisas on the floor below, there are mirrored statues of David off to the side. Frankenfurter has put on a doctor's smock, albeit one tailored to be a sort of dress. The doctor steps forward to politely acquaint himself with Brad and Janet, though the framing and script make it seem for a moment that he wants the audience to introduce ourselves to him.
I know that Brad and Janet are the audience surrogates, but with these touches, the movie goes beyond that, so we really feel like we're in the castle ourselves.
I like how Brad mispronounces his fiance's name.
This is my fiancée, Janet Weiss.
Weiss.
Weiss?
This minor slip-up reveals where Brad's head is at, seething with contempt for the alien culture he's surrounded by, despite his outward phony acceptance. When Frank kisses Janet's hand, he says,
Enchanté.
Then Frank gives them basic white robes while applauding his own hospitality, which causes Brad to lash out, demanding that they get their phone call. But Brad's indignation only serves to turn Frank on. Dr. Frankenfurter then gives a short speech about his breakthrough. He now knows
The secret to life itself.
Janet seems pretty impressed, and Brad isn't too happy to see that she is. We are about to witness the birth of his creature! Distorted guitars and steady drums guide us, with strobing lights illuminating the room. The doctor's assistants revealed the cloaked object is a tank containing a mummy-like figure suspended in liquid. The mad scientist instructs his hunchback servant to activate the strange scientific devices. We see the interior of the strange geometric structure atop the castle is housing a hexagon with faucets for all 7 colors of the rainbow, which Frank pours into the tank in Roy G. Biv order. Then the creature rises up, unmasks himself, and we finally meet the titular Rocky Horror. He hangs onto the faucet device as it retracts into the domed ceiling. This begins the song Sword of Damocles. This song is about how Rocky's creation portends bad things to come, and he's scared about this life he's been given. But everyone else is being supportive of him and are more optimistic about his prospects. During his singing, he is stripped of his bandages, revealing nothing beneath except lean muscles and a gold Speedo. Throughout the song, Frank is chasing Rocky, trying to take possession of him. After the song, Frank scolds Rocky for his alleged misbehavior, but Frank's yearning for his creation convinces the doctor to forgive the perceived transgressions. Riff Raff and Magenta lavish praise on Frank for the magnificence of his creation, while Columbia says,
He's okay.
Okay. Okay!
Frankenfurter doesn't like that. In an insecure bid for validation, Frank asks Janet and Brad for approval. Janet tries to assuage her fiancé's own insecurities by assuring Brad,
I don't like men with too many muscles.
Unsurprisingly, Rocky doesn't pick up on the subtle motive behind her disingenuous response and looks heartbroken by her admission. Frank is pissed.
I didn't make him for you!
Even Brad looks dejected, perhaps because he's still insecure about his own aesthetic value, or maybe because he doesn't feel comfortable appraising another man's beauty. What would it say about Brad if he was bewitched by Rocky's splendor? It might not be an answer he's comfortable with giving.
But his gaze says he's thinking about it.
Frankenfurter doubles down on Rocky's muscliness. Beginning the next song, I Can Make You a Man. This song needs a little less interpretation than most we've seen so far. Frank wants to build up Rocky's muscles with lots of exercise and a high-protein diet.
I wonder what for?
The song is interrupted with another, as the Rockabilly Eddie busts out of the deep freeze chamber and begins Hapatude. Bless my soul. This hog-riding greaser offers a very different vision of masculinity than Rocky, with his bear-like physique and devil-may-care attitude contrasting with Rocky's leanness and need for approval. In addition to the freezer burn he's covered in, Eddie has a conspicuous gash along his forehead. The lyrics of his song match his appearance, with a nostalgia for the 50s rock and roll scene. He sings about riding with his girl, where the radio music would get them riled up for some action in the back seat.
The song's name could literally be a reference to getting some ass.
So while you might have thought that Columbia was singing about meeting Frankenfurter in her introduction up until now it appears she may have been talking about Eddie. While she is thrilled to see him again, Frankenfurter's megalomania doesn't like it when he's upstaged. The doctor finds a pickaxe in the freezer and stalks Eddie to put an end to the biker's raucous usurping of attention.
Though again, the POV framing makes it look like the doctor's attention is on the audience, like we are being backed into the freezer by this axe-wielding psychopath.
We see Eddie cower in terror and Columbia scream in agony as Frank repeatedly attacks Eddie before stumbling out with blood on his hands. After Frank calms down the spooked Rocky, he returns to the "I Can Make You a Man" song like nothing happened, before the doctor and his creation go to
The seclusion of his somber bridal suite.
to, work out. We hear that Janet is more willing to let her true feelings be known. Brad looks pretty disappointed in her, and she stifles her outburst of self-expression. We see that Brad and Janet are sent to separate rooms, where they are under hidden surveillance by Frankenfurter's servants. After falling asleep, Janet is awakened by Brad knocking at her door. She's surprised when Brad climbs on top of her. She starts a short protest, but when he cuts her off to assure her it'll be alright, she acquiesces. But as she runs her hands through his hair comes off, revealing that it isn't Brad, but in fact Frankenfurter. Apparently he is already done with round 1 with Rocky, and is up for some more with Janet. Damn. Janet pushes Frank up off her, calling him a monster, saying,
What have you done with Brad?
Well, nothing. Why do you think I should?
She's deeply upset, clinging strong to her purity. But Frank persists in his advances.
Stop! I mean, help! Brad!
That inflection sounds pretty conflicted to me.
Frank tries to get her to quiet down so as not to wake Brad, and she continues to condemn Frank for his wantonness. But Frank suggests
I'm sure you're not spent yet.
her rote protest finally gives way, as she realizes she might get what she wants without the disapproval she fears. So she agrees to indulge herself, so long as Frank won't tell Brad. Since Rocky is left alone during all of this, Riff Raff and Magenta plot to torment the creation. He lies in bed, tied up with golden shackles. Riff Raff harasses Rocky with a candelabra, causing the whore to break free of his chains and escape by climbing down the elevator shaft. Riff Raff and Magenta share a triumphant gesture and start necking. We see a mirror of Janet's last scene, with Brad being awakened by Janet at the door. She rushes to him, fearful that they'll be destroyed by these people in the castle. He consoles Janet, running his hand through her hair, only to realize this isn't Janet, it's Frankenfurter. Brad is shocked and pushes Frank off, asking,
What have you done with Janet? Nothing. Why do you think I should?
My God, Frank's down for round 3 with Brad. Impressive.
We get an exact mirror of the previous scene, with Brad protesting and Frank pointing out that Brad does in fact enjoy it. Brad says he
Thought it was the real thing.
But once Frank promises he won't tell Janet, Brad welcomes Frank's advances. Riff Raff interrupts by telling Frank that Rocky has escaped, but Frank wants to continue the business at hand. Janet is lamenting her infidelity, and Rocky is being chased by the dogs. Janet wanders into the lab, wishing out loud for the night to have been different. She turns on the surveillance and sees Brad and Frank sharing a bed. She can't believe it. She hears a whimpering from the tank and finds a beleaguered Rocky hiding in there. She tends to his wounds and begins singing, touch me. She admits to her reluctance towards intimacy, explaining how she avoided heavy petting since
It only leads to trouble and seat wetting.
sounds like she shared Ben Shapiro's fear of moisture.
Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet-ass pussy. Give me everything you got for this wet-ass pussy. There's something that is going on here that is not biologically normal.
Lucky for Janet, the song is about conquering this fear. She wants Rocky bad. She can tell they both need each other, so she joins him in the tank and they scratch each other's itches.
Nice. Frankenfurter isn't the only one going multiple rounds in one night.
After Rocky and Janet hook up, They hide out in the tank, since Brad and Frank go to the lab, with the latter whipping Riffraff for letting Rocky escape. Riffraff lies, saying Rocky ran off while he was away, and Frank sends him off to find the missing creature. Before he can, Riffraff realizes that someone has shown up at the front door. Brad recognizes him as Dr. Everett Scott, the man they were intending on meeting that night. Riffraff inquires,
You know this Earthling?
What could that mean? Frank summons the wheelchair-bound Scott with an electromagnet, which thankfully can take Dr. Scott on a winding trip through the castle, instead of just getting him stuck on the ceiling or something. But after all the snaking around, he still bursts through a wall of the lab before careening right next to Frankenfurter. Brad and Scott are happy and surprised to see each other, but Frank's paranoia makes him think their meeting was no accident.
It was part of your plan, was it not? That he and his female should check the layout for you?
There's another implication of marital ownership, and I love how condescending Frank sounds when he says, his female.
Like, here's Frank with 4 bitches while Brad only has 1, and he thinks it's cute that Brad's limited to only 1 woman.
But Scott reveals that he is there because Eddie sent for him, and that Eddie was his nephew. The admission shocks Janet, whose gasp alerts both Brad and Frank to their lack of control over their objects of affection. In the midst of this confrontation, Magenta hits a gong to let them know that
Dinner is prepared!
Alright, I love this shot. It's a Dutch angle which reflects the tension between the characters. We can also see everyone at the table at once, the opulent chandelier, and the comical amount of cutlery. Riffraff and Magenta roll in the main course, which is unceremoniously dumped in front of Frank. While Frank fillets the meat, the servants pour some wine for the guests, haphazardly spilling it on the table. Frank gives a toast to absent friends and starts an awkward happy birthday song to Rocky. Scott tries to turn the conversation back to Eddie, which only riles up Columbia. Frank says,
That's a rather tender subject. Another slice, anyone?
Everyone except Rocky realizes that the meat is actually Eddie. Columbia excuses herself to scream in the other room, while Dr. Scott breaks the fourth wall and tells us that the freaks are actually aliens.
I guess having a doctorate lets you know that you're in a movie.
Frankenfurter asks Scott to explain his accusation, which launches Scott into the song Eddie. In this song, we learn that Eddie has been a rebellious spirit his whole life. In addition to being into bikes, women, and rock music, he was a dope fiend.
So he gets the sex, drugs, and rock and roll trifecta. Nice.
He also had a propensity for violence and a skewed sentimentality. Columbia chimes in, saying that she understood why he led his reckless lifestyle, but tried in vain to help him keep it together. Despite his nephew's incorrigible nature, Dr. Scott sympathized with Eddie's troubles, so he took it seriously when Eddie reached out to his uncle for help fighting off the evil within the castle. I don't know how this proves that they're aliens, but after the song wraps up, Frankenfurter rips off the tablecloth to reveal Eddie's bloated corpse inside the table.
This sends Janet shrieking into Rocky's arms, which once again makes Frank hella jelly.
The doctor chases Janet out of the room. At least Riffraff and Magenta are enjoying it. This starts Frank singing Planet Schmanet Janet. He insults Janet, saying that she doesn't taste too appledy-snappledy where it counts. She gets him back with a knee right in the Frankenfurter. He continues to chase her, while saying she's wound up too tight to be sensual.
I don't know, dude. Rocky didn't seem to mind. And isn't that why you mad in the first place?
Continued in part 3.